The Duke of Wardour drew back the curtain of the blue alcove to look at the weather, and found a young woman standing behind it with a plate of seed cake. "Please," she whispered, "shut it again." Silas considered this. Behind him, 40 people were being musical in the long drawing room at Corvidale, and he had come to the alcove precisely because it was the only place in the house where nobody was singing at him. He shut the curtain. Then he stood with his back to it, facing the room, hands behind him, and said quietly over his shoulder, "Have you been there long?" "Since the second glee," said the curtain. "That is 40 minutes. It is a very long glee." A small pause. "Your Grace, if you continue to talk to a window, my aunt will notice you, and if my aunt notices you, she will come, and if she comes, she will find me, and I shall be sent home to deal on the mail." "Why should she send you home?" "Because I am to be invisible," said the curtain, "for a fortnight. Those were her instructions. I am not to speak, I am not to dance, and I am not to be seen, because Cecilia is to be engaged by Sunday, and I am not to be in the way of it." The voice was perfectly level. There was even something wry in it. "I am doing rather well until now. I have been here 9 days, and 2 people have asked me who I am." Silas Wardour discovered, with mild astonishment, that he wished to laugh, which he had not done in company for a considerable time. "Engaged to whom?" he said. There was a silence behind the curtain, of a highly particular quality. "Ah," said Silas. "I did not say anything." "You did not need to. I have been driven 110 miles to be sung at, and Miss Cecilia Ashe has been placed on my right hand at dinner 9 times running, and this morning her mother asked me whether I did not think a duchess ought to be tall." He looked at the room. Lady Ashe was at the far end with a fan, working. "What is your name?" "Rowena Ashe, the cousin, the poor one," a rustle. "There is generally one." "Miss Ashe, do you want the rest of that cake?" "I do, very much. I have not dined properly in 9 days, because I am seated below the salt with Mr. Preing, who talks about tunnels." "Then eat it," said the Duke of Wardour, "and I shall stand here and be unapproachable, which I am reliably informed is my chief accomplishment." He stood there for 11 minutes. It was the pleasantest 11 minutes he had spent since the spring. He came back to the blue alcove the following evening, and the evening after that. He learned, through 6 inches of faded blue damask, that Rowena Ashe was 25, that her father had been a naval surgeon who died at sea, leaving £11 and a chest of instruments, that she had lived at Corvidale on sufferance for 6 years, and earned her keep by writing her aunt's letters, keeping her aunt's accounts, and being blamed, that she had read every book in the Corvidale library, including 2 she was not supposed to know existed, and that she was not sorry for herself in the smallest degree, which he found more remarkable than anything else about her. She learned because she asked why the county called him the Wolf of Wardour. "2 years ago I broke an engagement," said Silas to the room. 11 days before the wedding. The world was told that I am heartless and that the lady was cruelly used, and the world was told correctly on the first count. "And the second?" "The second is not mine to give away," he said, "and it never will be, and that is precisely why they call me what they call me. A man who will not explain himself is assumed to have no defense." He turned a fraction. "You are the 4th person alive who knows there is one." "Then I shall be the 4th person alive who does not repeat it," said Rowena Ashe, and he believed her instantly, and thought afterwards how strange that was. On the 12th day she did not come to the alcove. She came to the gun-room corridor at 4:30 in the afternoon, walking fast, and stopped him with a hand that did not quite touch his sleeve. "Your Grace, I must be very quick and very vulgar. Do not go to the library at midnight. Silas looked at her properly in daylight for the first time. Brown hair, a gown that had been dyed and turned, gray eyes that were, at this moment, extremely angry. Go on. You are to receive a note at 11 in a woman's hand, begging you to come to the library on a matter of the greatest delicacy. You will go, because you are a gentleman, and you will suppose somebody is in trouble. At midnight the door will be opened by my aunt, with Lady Mowbray and the Bishop of Sarum's wife, and as many witnesses as can be got out of bed, and Cecilia will be discovered in the room in her dressing gown, and there will be an end of you. Rowena's chin was up. It has been arranged since Tuesday. I know because I write her letters, and this once she wrote her own, and blotted it, and I found the blotting paper. And Miss Cecilia has agreed to this. Cecilia is 19 and has been told since she was 12 that she is to marry greatly, and she is doing as she is bid, and she cried about it in the still room this morning for half an hour. Rowena's voice softened for the first time. She is not wicked. She is furnished. Silas stood in the gun-room corridor and felt the old cold thing settle behind his ribs, the thing that had made him what he was. Why are you telling me? Because it is a wicked thing to do to a man. You will be turned out. Yes. Today, tonight, with 11 pounds and a chest of surgical instruments. Very likely, she said it steadily. Your Grace, I have been invisible for 6 years, and I have discovered that the trouble with being invisible is that one sees everything, and eventually one has to decide what one is going to do about it. I have decided. Do not go to the library. Silas Wardour looked at her for a long moment. Miss Ashe, he said, I am going to go to the library. You are not listening. I am listening. I have listened to nothing else for a fortnight. He put his hands behind his back. But at midnight, I intend to be exactly 9 minutes late, and I should be very much obliged if you would go nowhere near that room and lock your own door and know nothing whatever about it. Rowena Ashe said, 9 minutes in an odd voice, as though checking a sum. Then she curtsied and went away down the corridor, and Silas ought to have known, he would tell himself so for years afterwards, that a woman who checks a sum has already begun to add. He came down at 9 minutes past midnight with a candle, and the library door stood ajar, and Rowena Ashe was inside it. She was fully dressed, still in the dyed and turned gown, and she was standing by the garden door with a shawl over her arm that was not hers, and the long window behind her was open on wet grass. Where is your cousin? Said Silas. In her bed, with a cup of milk, crying with relief. Rowena shut the garden door and turned the key. She was here at 20 minutes past 11, and she was shaking so badly she could not hold a candle. I told her that a woman who begins her marriage with a trap will spend 40 years in it, and I sent her out across the lawn and round by the still-room stair. And you stayed. Somebody had to shut the window. Miss Ashe, he set his candle down, you understand what happens in 6 minutes. Yes, she was very pale. I did the sum. 9 minutes late and Cecilia gone and a door full of bishops' wives. There will be somebody in this room, your Grace, and it will not be a 19-year-old girl who was told to do it. It will be me who was not. She lifted her chin. I would rather be ruined for a thing I chose. Silas Wardour looked at her across 8 feet of Turkey carpet, in a house that had been trying for a fortnight to sell him a wife, and understood with total clarity that he had already been bought and paid for, and had not been consulted. Come here, he said. Your Grace. Rowena, come here. There are 4 minutes and I will not shout it. She came. He heard them then, the boards on the landing, more than one pair of feet, a woman's whisper carrying the way whispers do. He took Rowena Ash's hand, and turned so that his shoulder was between her and the door, and bent his head, and said against her ear low, so that no one on earth heard it but her. "You are mine. Say nothing, do nothing, deny nothing, and let me speak. And when this is over you may be free of me in a quarter of an hour, and you will not be poor again as long as you live." She made the smallest sound. Her fingers closed hard round his. The door opened. Lady Ash came in first with a branch of candles held high, and Lady Mowbray behind her, and the Bishop of Sarum's wife in a cap, and two others, and Lady Ash's face went through a sequence Silas would remember with satisfaction for the rest of his days. Triumph, confusion, and then a dreadful scrambling recalculation. "Rowena," it came out as a screech, "you scheming, ungrateful little." "Madam," said the Duke of Wardour. The room stopped. "You will wish to be the first to congratulate us," he said, "and I shall let you, because you are her aunt and it is your right." He drew Rowena's hand through his arm and settled it there. "Miss Rowena Ash has this evening done me the honor of accepting my offer. We had arranged to meet here at midnight precisely, because a house of 40 people affords a man no privacy whatever, and I see we were entirely correct." He looked round the doorway, unhurried, at each face in turn. "Lady Mowbray, ma'am. My compliments to the bishop. I am glad of so many witnesses. It saves the trouble of an announcement." There was nothing anybody could say. That was the whole art of it, and he had learned it in a harder school than Corvedale. Rowena Ash stood beside him with her hand on his sleeve and her back straight, and said, in a voice of perfect composure, "Thank you, Aunt. You have always said I should be settled." They were out of the house by 10 the next morning. Rowena in the Wardour traveling carriage with a chaperone hastily produced in the form of Silas's mother's cousin, a deaf and delightful woman named Mrs. Pelly, who thought the whole business splendid. At the first change of horses, he put a paper into Rowena's hands. "Read it. Mrs. Pelly has already witnessed it, though she believes it to be about a dog." It said that, in the event of the engagement being dissolved at any time, and for any reason by the lady, the sum of 500 a year was settled upon Rowena Ash absolutely, together with the lease of a house in Bath. "6 weeks," said Silas. "At the end of 6 weeks you will tell me to go, and I shall go, and the world will say the Wolf of Wardour has done it again, and I shall not mind, because I am used to it, and you will be safe. That is the arrangement. You are not to thank me, and you are not to argue." Rowena folded the paper. "I shall argue about one clause," she said. "Which?" "The one that assumes, you know, what I shall want in 6 weeks." Wardour in October was 3 miles of beach avenue, and a house too large for one man. She was given the east rooms. Within a week she had found his mother's still-room book, and set the housekeeper to copying it. Within 2, she had discovered that the Wardour school had been closed since the year 11, and had it opened. Within 3, she had begun coming down to breakfast, which nobody had done at Wardour in 11 years, and reading him the newspaper aloud in a voice that made even the shipping intelligence sound like an argument she intended to win. In the 4th week, the letter came from the family of the lady he had not married. They had heard of the engagement. They observed that Miss Ash was a person of no fortune and no connection. They proposed, with regret, that unless certain arrangements were revisited, it might become necessary to publish a full account of the events of 2 years ago, in which, they were confident, his Grace's conduct would appear to great disadvantage. Silas put it in front of Rowena at breakfast, because he had got into the habit of putting things in front of Rowena. "They are threatening to tell the truth," she said slowly. They are threatening to tell a version of it that ruins their own daughter and makes me a monster, and they know I will pay rather than let the first happen. He turned his cup. I have paid before. Then you will pay again, said Rowena, and I shall never ask you what it was, not once, not on my deathbed. Silas looked up. You could end it in a sentence, he said. You could tell every drawing room in England what happened in that house, and you would be believed, and you would be pitied and admired and received everywhere, and I should be forgiven overnight. And you will not even let me tell you. It is not my secret, and it is not yours to spend on my comfort, said Rowena Ashe. You have carried it 2 years alone and been called a wolf for it. You may carry it 40 more, and I shall sit beside you while you do it, and the county may say what it likes. She reached across the cloth and set her hand flat on the letter. I have been invisible 6 years, Your Grace. I am not frightened of being talked about. I am only frightened of being talked about by people who matter. And I have discovered that there are exactly 2 of those, and one of them is deaf and thinks we are discussing a dog. Silas Wardour got up out of his chair and came round the table and went down on one knee on the breakfast-room floor, which was a thing no Duke of Wardour had done in that room in 200 years. The 6 weeks have 4 days to run, he said. They have. I'm not going to wait them out. His voice was not under his control, and he made no attempt to bring it under. Rowena, in a dark library with a door full of witnesses coming, I said 3 words to you and called it strategy. I have thought about very little else since, and it was not strategy, and I knew it was not before I finished saying it. Marry me, not the arrangement, not the paper. There is a plain gold ring in my mother's box, and a curate in the village who would do it tomorrow. And I want you at this table for the rest of my life, reading me the shipping intelligence as though it were a war. Rowena Ashe put both hands against his face. Say the 3 words again, she said, properly and not against my ear, and not to save me from anything. You are mine, said the Duke of Wardour, and I am yours entirely, and I have been since the 2nd Glee. They were married at Wardour in the 3rd week of November. Mrs. Pelly wept. The county came out of pure curiosity and stayed for 40 years, because the new Duchess opened the school, argued with the bishop, and was quite unshakably kind about a young cousin who had once been made to stand shivering in a library at past 11 at night, and who came in time, and often, and always with her own husband and her own good name. And once a year, at the anniversary, Silas would find her in some quiet corner of that too large house, and draw back whatever curtain she was behind. And there she would be, generally with a plate of seed cake, waiting for him.